How's it going, everyone? Welcome to this week's Q&A. So like any of the week, if you want a chance to win your questions being answered, make sure you drop a comment down below and I'll either answer it in that comment in a future video just like this one, or I'll make a dedicated video if need be. So that being said, let's go ahead and get started with the first question of the week. And it is, what has and how has the reliability been of the second generation Acura TLX non-Type S? So all models with the exception of that Type S, because that's a whole different animal. So struts have been great. Suspension, there's been some lower ball joint issues here and there. Calipers and everything like that have been great for the most part. The ADAS stuff, so adaptive cruise control, the Honda sensing, all that stuff has been pretty good as well. Some issues that I have seen and heard of, through the forums, customers of mine, things like that. And the most concerning would be head gasket failures as they are starting to age. We are starting to see some head gaskets starting to fail. Also, some casting issues around the turbo on the head. So coolant leaking past the head. A lot of people think it's usually like a turbo coolant line or the radiator leaking because it kind of splatters all over the valve cover. But all it is the head is leaking, which is obviously a big concern. So not something that you want to see on these cars. But, something that we are starting to see. Also, I have heard of a couple of cases actually happened to a customer of mine. Somebody I meticulously did their maintenance on their vehicle. So they're pretty on time, pretty on target with it. We did everything by the book, even aggressively. And the bottom end developed a knock. So not sure if that's going to turn into a trend or anything like that. But there was a couple of cases, and he actually spoke to a technician at the Acura dealer, and they said there have been some similar issues with that. So if you're Acura tech, if you see anything like that, if you own one of these and you've seen anything like that developed, so let me know. Drop a comment down below. So 3 pretty big deal items. Transmissions have been okay. I'm not sure or aware of any transfer cases stripping like the Type S models. Again, if you have one of these vehicles, if you're Acura tech, make sure you drop a comment down below so we could all be informed. Everything else seems to be okay. Puddle lights are obviously a big issue. Not a big deal, but if you have one of these cars, puddle lights, if you're lucky, work for a couple of weeks. In most cases, people have got them replaced 5, 6, 7 times and they keep failing. Just leave them off. If they're not flickering, leave them off in my opinion. I did the pilot lights on mine, so the 23 and newer Pilot Elite lights are white versus like that warm white. Look a lot better. They lasted like 9 months. My original ones, they failed the day I brought them home for the dealer. So they do seem to last a little bit longer. So I've done some modifications as well. I have a couple of cars out there with them. So if you still have them, they're working great. Drop a comment down below. So hopefully I answers the question for you. The next question is, and unfortunately I get this question asked all the time. I have multiple videos on this subject, and the question just keeps popping up. So I'll answer it every couple of months because why not, right? A lot of people are asking for it. Maybe they haven't seen a video. But anyways, what can you do to kind of prevent or, try to avoid this 1.5T head gasket blown issue? So obviously the number one thing is don't abuse the car on a consistent basis, especially if it's hot out. Heat, turbos, they don't do well, cause a lot of detonation, stuff like that. Check your coolant levels basically every time you change your oil. If it's low, top it off. A little bit is okay. If it's consuming the whole reservoir between oil changes, you got a problem. And at that point, you probably have a blown head gasket already. Now, top it off as needed at the oil change. If it needs a 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, just keep it between that mid and that low and that high levels, the mid and the max, whatever it's called on the reservoir, and you should be okay. Don't go crazy and adding all the way to the top of the reservoir. It needs to go in and out as needed. So those are kind of 2 things. Use 91 or better octane fuel. Again, try to prevent as much detonation as possible. That is a killer for these engines. If you really wanted to, get some head studs on these vehicles, fairly new on, so you're gonna have to. The right way to do it is remove the head, replace the head gasket, get new head studs on there, check, make sure nothing's warped. Some people have done a 1x1 method and have been successful. So if that's something that maybe works for you, maybe you want to try it. I wouldn't personally do it myself. If somebody asked me to do it, I would surely do it, but I would definitely highly warn them that this isn't the right way to do it. If something happens, it's on them. They made the call. I would have that in writing, them sign it, have a witness record it, whatever, just so it never falls back on me because, again, it's not the right way to do it. So, but some things you could try to do. So coolant levels, check on it. Don't abuse the car. Get some head studs on there, and 91 or better octane fuel. I have 94 here in Jersey, so that's what I use on my TLX at best. Higher octane fuel is always better, especially on a turbo car. So hopefully that answers the question for you. So the next question is a loud clicking or clunking sound when changing direction and hitting the brakes for the first time. I believe I answered this question a couple months back, but here we are. People keep asking this one question again. So it is normal for you to have some clicking when you change direction and hit the brakes for the first time. So what happens is the brake pad shifts up and down as you change direction, and you hit the brakes, it's going to move down. And then when it go the other way, it's going to move up. So that is absolutely normal. Now, if you go from drive to reverse and you hit the brakes and you hear the clunking again, now you reverse some more and you hear the clunking again, chances are there's something else going on. But if you change from reverse to drive, hit the brakes, go back into reverse, hit the brakes, in some cases, maybe louder than others, but it is completely normal to hear that clunk or clacking or clicking, whatever you want to call it, for one time. And also, when releasing the brakes, sometimes if you do it just right and you release the brakes slowly and if there's some friction there causing some weird noises, that's absolutely normal. Also, if you're on a weird angle and if there's like some body flex going on, that's also normal. So if none of these apply and you're getting consistent noise on a consistent basis going in the same direction, then maybe something is loose, something is worn, something is leaking, something is torn, and you want to go and get it looked at. So if it's just a one-time thing, switching directions, absolutely normal, 9 out of 10 times. Now, at times we do apply some extra brake lube or moly coat to them. Eventually it comes back, so that's not a permanent fix. And the pads have to move a little bit because if they're completely tight in there, then when the piston applied pressure, the brake pads will consistently apply pressure to that rotor. So you don't want that to happen either. That's why there's that play in there. Now, Honda has changed the design of the retaining clips over time. So sometimes they work better, sometimes they work worse. So some cars also make the noise more than others. Really depends on the situation. And if you have aftermarket brake pads, a lot of times those are universal. They fit multiple different cars and they're a little bit smaller. So at those times, we see a ton of brake noise. So keep that in mind also and consider that also could be an issue. So hopefully that answers the question for you. This next question is when replacing your battery, is there anything special that you need to do before or after you replace it? So I believe this person had a 2017 Pilot. And yes, there's a couple things you could do, but you not necessarily need to do them. So you could add a battery saver to the OBD2 port, and that kind of just keeps the memory on everything and keep it from complete berserk when you reset the battery cables and reset the battery and unplug it for a certain amount of time. So if you choose not to use a battery saver, because sometimes they could be, they're about $75 to $100 for a good one on Amazon. I'll have a link in the description section down below if you're interested in purchasing one. If you're replacing your battery, you're not doing it every day. So now if it's a person like me where I change batteries sometimes 6-7 times a week, sure. If you are just a regular owner of a vehicle and you're going to change your battery once every 5 years, probably not something you want to invest in. So if you choose not to use a battery saver and you go ahead and change the battery, you connect everything back up, chances are on a newer vehicle, you're going to have a Christmas tree of lights when you turn the vehicle back on. At that point, 99 out of 100 times, all you have to do is drive a couple of blocks before the computer realizes, all right, everything's back to normal and you are good to go. So in the event it doesn't do that, sometimes you have to cycle the key back off after driving for a couple blocks, turn it back on, and then it's always usually good as well. In some very rare cases, you do have to go in there and clear some codes. This is when the Launch X431 for Hondas and Acuras would come in super clutch. But that usually doesn't happen a lot of times. Usually just driving a couple blocks is plenty and more than enough. So other than that, on older vehicles and newer vehicles, you're going to have to hold the radio button. That's no-brainer. That's not something that you could avoid. So in these newer vehicles, even though it says you need a radio code, you don't. You just need to hold the button. On an older vehicle, yes, you're going to have to need a radio code. So if you don't have that radio code, you could contact your local Honda dealer. A lot of times they could get it for you with you doing a special sequence with the physical radio. Or a lot of times it's either in your user manual or your owner manual, or in a glove box in a white sticker, or a card that should have been given to you at the time of purchase. Unfortunately, a lot of times you're no longer the original owner, and those cards get lost, along the way somewhere. So look for a sticker in your glove box. That's usually where us PDI technicians will put them in. A card or in your owner's manual, somewhere in there, it's usually a 5-digit code. So if you have a radio and a Navi, at that point you have a 5-digit code and a 4-digit code. This is for the older vehicles. The newer vehicles no longer need this. So hopefully I answered this question for you. So last but not least, question of the week. And again, if you have a question you want to go ahead and ask, make sure you drop a comment down below, and I'll try to get to each and every question. So the question is, there was a video circulating about 10 to 14 days ago on YouTube of a 2025 Honda CR-V hybrid cruising down a highway, all of a sudden catching fire. So the owner pulled over. I think everything is okay. He made it out, no injuries, although looks like from what I saw that the CR-V completely went up in flames and burnt down, and was a total loss. So is that related to the high pressure pump recall? Obviously, I can't say for sure because I wasn't there. I couldn't investigate the vehicle myself. Although from what I saw, and this video no longer seems to be on YouTube. So if you have a link to it, maybe drop it in the description section down below. I couldn't find it, so I'm not sure what happened, but I couldn't find it. I did originally see it, and then it just disappeared. So no, I don't think it was from the high pressure pump, because from what I can hear in the video, and again, sometimes noises could be misleading. So it sounded like the car was knocking. So at that point, we have seen some of these cars with a cracked piston, which if it's cracked, it could obviously lead to a catastrophic failure where in some situations, maybe it pushed the rod out the engine, and then hot oil got onto the exhaust, caught fire. Again, we could only assume here. We can't really know for sure. Is it possible that the high pressure pump, which we are actively testing, leaked and caused a fire? Sure, absolutely. But again, from what I saw in the video, I think it was something with the engine, which isn't good news. So that means there may be another issue that's brewing. So who really knows? But I think something happened to the engine. I'm not sure, maybe he ran something over. I mean, who really knows the full story here? But again, I heard a knocking sound, which I think led to a catastrophic failure, some sort of oil leak, and potentially that's what caused the fire. Again, anything is possible. I don't know. I didn't investigate this vehicle myself, so I can't say. But that's just my opinion on the matter. And from all the things that I gathered from that video, that's what I think happened. But again, I have no hard or physical evidence, just my opinion. So with that being said, hopefully it answers the question for you, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.